the most anticipated earnings releases for the week of January 13th, 2025. Presented by Earnings Whispers. And so it begins. Fourth quarter 2024 earnings season is upon us. It isn't so much that this week is busier than last week, because it really isn't. But the total market cap of those reporting this week is about 45 times greater than the total market cap last week. Of course, the real story here is that the financials make up most of the start of earnings season, and the big banks will start reporting on Wednesday. The fourth quarter earnings season is spread out more than the other 3 quarters of the year, and that even includes the financials, which spread out into mid-February. But we'll know most of what we need to know this week. Last week, I hinted that kbhome hadn't changed their earnings release date because they didn't want anyone to know the results. Well, they may have heard me, because they soon pushed their date to after the close this Monday. The story hasn't changed though, and while there are variables that may result in an upside surprise, the trends appear to have weakened since the company reported last. Then there is Air Test Systems, which is battling the adoption of its technology by an industry that continues to see mostly soft trends. There isn't much market cap reporting on Tuesday, but in a world focused on the investment in new data centers for AI, we'll hear some important news after the close when Applied Digital reports. It has been a better season for avocados, but shares of Calavo growers have rolled over to fill last quarter's earnings gap ahead of earnings this time around. Then, of course, is the start on Wednesday with JPMorgan. The banks all gapped higher following the election, and while most have rolled over to fill that gap, shares of JPMorgan basically retested that gap and bounced back. So what we need to know about the group is whether or not this was the final blow-off top with investors that were too excited, or if there was a reason for the price move. JPMorgan should tell us that. Don't expect to learn much different from Citi, but Citigroup's stock has shown relative strength since the election. Thursday will have more of the financials, but you will care more about the non-financials at least for a day. Taiwan Semiconductor reports early Thursday morning as the stock pulls back from a high. You've heard about this AI thing, I'm sure, but what about the state of the PC, automotive, and smartphones? I don't quite know what to say about UnitedHealth Group other than the conference call is sure to be a somber one following the killing of UnitedHealthcare's CEO Brian Thompson. Another non-financial tops investors focus on Friday with SLB. It is a bear market for most energy names until shown otherwise, and shares of SLB have hit new lows ahead of earnings. Of course, there are still more financials, and an important regional bank, amply named Regions, will also report. Despite the weakness last week and now the start of earnings season, volatility is fairly muted for those reporting. One exception is Wipro, which has option traders pricing in a rather large move compared to its recent average. But maybe don't read into that too much. This is what they've done basically each of the past several quarters. There are still a lot of companies that haven't scheduled earnings yet, and that is because companies take longer to wrap up their fourth quarter results and have auditors sign off. However, we basically consider earnings season to be the period between JPMorgan's results and NVIDIA's earnings release, which is at the very end of February, so we have most of earnings season on this calendar. This still leaves off companies like AMD, Amazon, and Alphabet simply because they haven't scheduled yet. Still, most of what you want to watch is there now.
Shh.